Friday possible. If you are watching on or listening on Free Conference Call HD, I am eternally grateful for your dedication to each day and the routines that we promote so heavily. Obviously, you guys are familiar with the routine, so just give me a moment to get everything working correctly, because today, for the first 25 minutes, you can listen in as we discuss value. But I'm not just going to discuss value in the sense that you've heard it 17 times before. We're going to discuss it in really creative ways. So I can promise you something you hear today is likely going to make you money over the course of the next 7 days, maybe even this afternoon. Okay, good. We are live on Facebook, active on Free Conference Call HD. If you're watching or listening, I have one favor to ask as we get settled in this morning. Share out the content to somebody else. Share out the Free Conference Call HD phone number to a friend, somebody in the industry, or somebody looking to get in the industry. If you're watching on StreamYard or social media, interact with us on StreamYard, comment on social media, and engage in the content, because today's conversation, like I had said a moment ago, I can rest assured is going to make you more money. So let's get into it. Value. Let's talk value, and not just value in the sense of riders, not just value in the sense of accidental death, not just riders in the sense of fraternal benefits that come built into many of the policies through the fraternal carriers we sell. But let's talk about value in you. Let's talk about value in your business. Let's talk about when you recognize the importance of value in you, value in your tangible, legal, taxable business. When you understand the value of those things, the rest of it all falls into place. Good morning and welcome into our 7th Dynamic Friday of 2025. Again, if you're watching on socials, appreciate you being here. Comment below and engage in the conversation if you're watching live, or ask questions in the future. The more you engage with this content, the more it will organically spread and organically help us grow our audience and our agency through the quality content we bring to you every single day. So value. Value is putting the work in, knowing the results will come when you do it. That's what I thought this morning. Value to me is valuing you as a human being, a small business owner, an individual producer, whatever description you choose to use. In valuing you, yourself, and nothing else before that, you learn to manage your emotions and not get angry at the small things, the medium things, and maybe even in some of the big things as well. When you value you watching today or listening across the country, you hold yourself to a higher standard. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to get those emotions a little bit flustered from time to time. I get it. Nobody here is a robot. But when you value you, you hold yourself to a standard different than all the others. When you value you, you are also more honest with yourself. When you value you and you're honest with yourself, you can really do a lot bigger self-assessments and be more honest with others in conversation. What I'm trying to say here is be honest with yourself if you value yourself. Honest about your work ethic. Honest about the level of activity you actually are engaging in. Remember, we say all the time that the person you talk to the most over the course of a day isn't your wife. Oh, by the way, it's Valentine's Day. If you forgot that, here's your reminder so she doesn't realize that you forgot. Being honest with yourself means you're honest with the person you talk to the most about how much activity am I actually doing? What's the actual investment and engagement I'm putting into my business? What level of intentionality and effort am I actually engaging in? If you can't be honest with you, then this is where the conversation stops. Hang up and do some self-assessment. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that just yet. But really, that's where this all starts. You can't possibly sell value in a product, a rider, a carrier, a concept if you don't value yourself. Chew these over for a second. I looked this up online. This isn't super creative. This is just me doing some basic research this morning. Here's some self-search value assessments. You are actually a lot stronger than you believe that you are. It sounds silly. I've heard it at gym before, and I've heard it at some dark moments in life, but you are stronger than you give yourself credit for. If you would value that assessment, you'd be able to do more. If you value yourself, you recognize that greatness lies within you. You have to self-actualize what you're trying to do long before you ever get there. We learned about that in Eric Hamadi's special during the winter special over the course of Christmas break. If you haven't watched that episode, listen to it on the way out into the field today after today's conversation. If you value yourself, you recognize that value has no limits or limitations. It can continue to grow. And just as much as you have to continue to push your way out of your comfort zone, value continues to grow as well. If you value yourself, the impact in which you can bring into others people's lives becomes even more real and more tangible. You have to value yourself before you value other people. You have to value who you are today and who you're supposed to be in the future. And if you value yourself, you don't settle for less than your worth. That's very simple. If you don't value yourself, how are you going to value your tangible, taxable, real business? I don't know exactly how specifically practical today's opening conversation is for those of you that enjoyed a lot of the practical talk over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks, but this is important. Like, you have to recognize that if you don't value your actual, tangible, taxable, real, sellable business, then that thing is never going to grow. This industry is wrought with the reality of a hobbyist mentality. This industry is wrought with the idea that, oh, I'm going to build a team. That's such an I'm going to hire somebody. Like, all of these fake verbs that exist out there are devaluing what you're actually doing. If you don't value yourself, you can't value your business. But if you do value your business, you recognize how real that is and how powerful that can be and how important it is to protect and invest in and build and grow and not give up on, even because you had a challenging day, week, month, quarter, whatever it is. You don't see people giving up on their business that they built their life into, put a shingle in and hired people to do. They don't do that. So why would you? Let's talk about value in the agency. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Adam because we are focused today on giving you Dynamic Friday in 60 minutes or less. Obviously, on Free Conference Call HD, we wrap at 9:25 and send you out into the field. But we are focused on wrapping Dynamic Friday in 60 minutes or less and getting you out there to sell and to succeed in ending your week. Agency value. How do we value our agency? Why do people invest themselves here versus other places? Because we believe in respecting the person beyond the premium. We're looking at the people, not the override. We're being honest about everything from the very beginning of the conversation. For the first time, we strike that conversation to buying leads, to selling, to building, to creating long-term relationships. Honesty is the founding principle to that. We believe in putting your best interests ahead of anybody else's. And that if you're watching today and you're building a team, I hate that term. If you're recruiting you get it. If you are having other people depend on you and contracting them below you, you have to recognize the importance of putting their best interest ahead of yours. That's what value is in business and agency building. We build value in recognizing that we can help you with small, ultra competitive fraternal carriers or the big name brand companies that offer high comp and big names. We value in this agency, not just first year commission, not just paying your rent on the first because you sold a policy on the 28th, but understanding the value in first year commissions and a long-term residual income. We create value here in providing resources from in-house appointment setting to lead management. Like, you can come in today and say, here's my card. I'm going to send you leads and we keep this machine moving. We create value in this agency by both offering direct mail and digital marketing, experience-based training, occasionally a little bit less practical than maybe you want, sometimes a little bit more mindset than some, but the kind of experience that comes from doing what you're doing and not just sitting behind a desk. We create value in offering high comp and all the key aspects of the business that somebody needs to succeed. And most importantly, we believe in the value of community, that a rising tide raises all ships, and that together, everybody can know everything together, but not one person knows everything by themselves. So my message to you this morning before I turn the mic over to Adam is this weekend and today, recognize the importance of valuing yourself, understanding that if you can value yourself, you can value your business. And if you value your business, you take that business way more seriously into next week. Adam, we're going to do Dynamic Friday in 60 minutes or less. I've taken the first 10 minutes. Let's take the next 50 and discuss practical or value in the way you see it this morning. Adam, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Yeah, just was thinking a little bit about a good topic for today. Last week we talked, we kind of went through the presentation that I go through. And like I said, my presentation, I try to make it real. I guess I try to make it not very sales pitchy. Some of the different presentations I've heard out there, they sound very salesy, where the person almost feels like they're sold at the end of the conversation. And I think the reason my presentation works is because of the fact that I focus a lot on just the value, the value propositions, which can be handled many different ways. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be focused on just a certain product. I sell the value that I'm local. When I talk to people, I let them know, yeah, I'm within 30, 45 minutes from you. If your family ever needs me, I'm right down the street. I'm not that difficult to get a hold of. And I let them know that I'll be there for their family when that time comes. When their family needs somebody to call that can help them through a tough time, seeing to it that claim is paid, and that claim is paid quickly, and that the insurance is there for what it's intended for. I let them know, I'm the guy. I'm going to be there for them. And so, and I haven't even pulled up our presentation today yet, but in a lot of it's probably what I'm talking about right now. Just not just focusing on face amounts and rates, because I think that is really big. I think so many times agents, that's all they're focused on. It's like, you're not just going to the store, picking out if you want to get like the name brand or the generic and save a few dollars. Like, we're talking about something that's pretty important here. So that's where we want to add some value. We don't just want to focus on face amounts and rates, because the next product that comes out that is a few dollars cheaper that the other agent has in their back pocket, real easy to walk in and replace that business. So, but if you sold on value, you don't have to worry as much. A few dollars isn't going to talk your client out of a policy if you did your job correctly.
Yeah, I was thinking you've been writing more and more Medicare over the course of the last 4 to 5 months. And Medicare is a massive value proposition to the client, to the senior that we're serving or sitting with or selling, because they're going to use it. They're going to take this tangible product and actually go to their doctor's office, present a card, and receive some kind of care that keeps them functional and living in a respectful manner. That's value. Like to a final expense client that's slinging an intangible item and only worried about paying next month's rent, it's very easy to be so focused on rates and face amounts and price busting carriers that send out, junk mail looking policies. That's not value. But when you recognize what you're actually doing in somebody's life, that takes value to a whole different level of proposition. Like the first time you've ever experienced a death claim was probably 2 decades ago. But if you're listening or watching today and you haven't experienced that call or that conversation yet, that makes this way more valuable, and it inspires you to work harder on the days that maybe you wouldn't have before. Adam, do you remember some of those phone calls where people are beneficiaries that are calling you to say your client has died, and the value of what you did that one afternoon for 45 minutes becomes ultra real?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it a little bit in the past, but
I think we might have lost you there for a moment. Go ahead.
Am I back?
Okay. You're good. Yeah, never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, my internet is in and out. Kids are home today, so they're probably streaming, they're on Roblox and all this other stuff, just killing my internet this morning. So
they're slinging up your signal.
They really are. Yeah, I'm sure they're using up the internet, and I'm sure they're slowing it down. But now I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah,
death claims, the value in that real life moment.
the first client that I ever had that had passed away was one of the first policies I ever wrote. I mean, kind of makes sense. I went to the funeral. I remember. I mean, I helped with the death claim. I showed up at the funeral. I even left like a little donation to the family, and I think that they really appreciated that. It really seemed like other people that were at that funeral had never seen the insurance man show up. And sometimes maybe that's because the insurance man maybe wasn't confident in what he actually sold the person. Maybe it didn't actually do what it was intended to do. Maybe the claim wasn't paid quickly. Maybe the family was put in a tough spot, even though that they took out that policy. So if you're confident in what you're selling and you know that the carriers that you're working with are going to do their part when the time comes, you can be confident enough to show up at the funeral, knowing that claim more than likely was already paid. So yeah, that's like I said. I mean, everybody was looking at me like, who the heck is this guy? But once they realized who I was, they were like, wow, that's really nice that, you actually are there for your clients from the time that you meet them all the way until the end. And that leads to additional business too, when people see those sort of things.
Yeah, I think it's also important to recognize the value in doing the right thing. And I'm sure we probably have taken every piece out of the presentation before we've gotten into it. But before we come off a free conference call HD at 9:25, I wanted to talk briefly about the value of doing the right thing. Adam, I remember a couple of months ago, I had a long-term client die. It's not a surprise. They're old people. Sorry to break it to you guys. Every person you sell a policy to is going to die at some point. But she'd had a couple policies with me over the course of the years, Medicare plans, grandkids coverage, basically the entire umbrella of anything I could do for her. And then another agent got in the home a couple months before she died, took everything she had that was non-contestable and in place for years and wholesale rolled it into one more expensive, less coverage product with Columbian. God rest their souls, they're off the market. Maybe this is a kind of a harbinger of why. He took all her policies and put them into one, and then about a month later, that lady died. And every single policy she had, which had then been canceled and rolled into one, was worthless. Now, there are some policies that do need to be upgraded. I'm not saying we don't replace. I do that all the time. But the value of doing the right thing means that at the end of somebody's story, the policy can still be there. But we don't make short-sighted decisions. We don't cut corners. Like, the value in doing the right thing is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, but that agent, Chris, made a really good commission. So, I mean, at least one person won out of that equation. The agent, he at least made a really good commission. I mean, he put the family in a really difficult situation. I don't know if the claim was ever paid. Do you know even if the claim was ever even paid on it?
I doubt it. I'm surprised Columbian can pay commissions at this point. I deposited a renewal check and it actually cleared my account. So thank God for that.
That's good.
I doubt it. I think the fact that she had died so soon after getting the policy, something was going to be in her records they would find a way out of at that point in the picture.
And I've done videos on that too. I've talked about that. I've talked about replacement of policies, and I'm not a real big fan of it. I replaced a couple policies this week, but they were all within like a year, maybe a little. One of them might have been a little bit over a year that they had taken out the policy. If they're past that 2-year contestable period, I rarely will replace that business. I have to feel like 100% confident that there's nothing that's going to show up in that person's medical, because I don't want to be playing God. And that's really what I'm doing. I mean, we're talking about policies that once they make it past the contestable period, no ifs, ands, or buts, those carriers have to pay the claim. So, I mean, why would I want to play God and take somebody out of a policy that's guaranteed to pay out, start that clock over with 2 years, not knowing for sure if it's going to pay? I said in a video once, if you're an agent and you replace business like that scenario you just talked about, Chris, and that carrier didn't pay the claim, I think the agent should be responsible for for coming up with the money to pay for that person's funeral, because they took them out of a policy that was guaranteed to pay out, that was going to help that family when they needed it, put them in a plan where they're starting completely over with a new contestable period. And then the family gets totally screwed when the carrier doesn't pay the claim because the agent wanted to make a few dollars. So
yeah, let's take our final 5 minutes before jumping off the conference call. And were there anything practical, value-based from this week's sales that somebody that's listening in can take into the field with them today from your week in the field?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I did write, I need to add one onto our Slack. I forgot. I did write another Medicare policy. So I wrote 3 Medicares this week. And those were off of final expense leads, where you just kind of get to talking with the clients and that. And so right there, I mean, I think that adds a little bit of value. One thing is that, at least from what I've seen, Chris, I'm very new to Medicare, but it seems like these monthly allowances, I guess you could say, like where the person gets money each month for food, groceries. Some of them can be used for like utilities and those sort of things. They seem like they're kind of not as easy to find, I guess you could say. Like not as many of the carriers offer that sort of thing anymore. At least that's what it seems like. Like I said, I'm pretty new to this. It seems like in the past, a lot more people were able to have access to that sort of thing. But now it seems like, it's mainly more for people that are unhealthy, like that might have chronic issues, heart issues, lung issues, or maybe like diabetes. So right away now, it's like when I'm talking to someone who's diabetic, that's like one of the first things I think about is I wonder if they're in one of these Medicare plans where they're getting a monthly allowance. And two people I talked to this week had previously been in a plan where they were receiving that monthly allowance, and now they no longer were, and they were both diabetic. And Humana, by me, they have like the plan that's specific for like heart and diabetes. And with that, the person receives a monthly allowance. So I was able to put some more money into the people's pocket each month to use for food and groceries, those sort of things. So they were happy with that. And and as I mentioned, it's so funny because I talk about how I'm not a real big fan of replacing policies, and I replaced 2 this week. But like I said, they were also both very new, and the client was very happy with what I was able to do. One client, she took out about a year and a half ago. She took out a policy with one of these carriers that's like I guess you could say almost like a captive carrier, where their rates are just completely not even competitive.
American Income Life.
Yeah, no, this one wasn't, but the other one was. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This one was actually Senior Life.
Sorry, Ron. Sorry if you're watching. Yeah. I know you sometimes watch. Sorry, Ron.
And she was paying like $90 a month for a $6,000 policy. And I forget how old she was, but I was able to get her a $10,000 policy for like the same price. And I'm like, it's kind of a no-brainer here. Like, do you think your family could use an extra $4,000 when you pass away? And you're only going to be paying, I think she was going to be paying like maybe like an extra $6 a month or something for an extra $4,000 in coverage. And it was a fairly new policy. So yeah, no, she was very happy that I was able to help her and put a little bit more. She already had a $10,000 policy, I think, from her old employment or something. So then I was able to, rather than just the 6,000, we did the 10,000. So yeah, she was real happy with that. And then, yeah, the other one, Chris, where I had replaced, it was an American Income Life. And I don't know if they just have a whole bunch of riders in their plans. It kind of looked like it, like this agent just added like 47 different riders to this policy because she was
value.
Yeah, maybe like value overload or something. But I mean, she was I think she was like 53 years old. And it was a $5,000 policy. There was also a rider on her 8-year-old son. And there might have been like a term rider on there. So it was like 5,000 whole life. There might have been like a term rider for a little bit more. And then on her son. Okay, so we're talking $5,000 and she's 53 years old. And she was paying like $78 a month for this policy. And I'm just sitting there like shaking my head. And she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, you did the right thing by, wanting to make sure that you were protected and that you had a policy. But this is just ridiculous, like what they're charging you for this. I wrote her a $20,000 policy with American Amicable for $56 a month. She had 5,000 plus a rider on her son, and she was paying 78 a month. So, I mean, she was very happy. I was able to get her 4 times the amount of coverage, and she just took that policy out in like September of last year. So it was a very new policy. Her height and weight was a little, her height was a little low for her weight, I guess you could say. And I'm thinking maybe that's why they rated it up, but she was within the height and weight guidelines. So I was able to get her first day coverage with American Amicable. Yeah. And it was a fraction of what she was paying with the other company for more coverage. So she was very happy. And then from there, leads to referrals. Even the other lady that I replaced the other policy right away, referrals. She's, her daughter needs a policy too. She was happy I was able to help her, and again, not only did I help her with replacing that policy and get her $4,000 more in coverage, but then I also was able to help her with her Medicare, and she was happy with that too. So now I have a client for life that, that built trust. She saw that I was looking out for her. So, and then, yeah, the other, I wrote like 4 apps this week, I think, totaling around 4,000 in premium. The other one was the other guy too. Same thing. I wrote him the Aetna we talked about earlier this week. Aetna final expense policy. It was a $13,000 policy for like $83 a month at his age, which was a very good rate. And I could tell just he already had another policy. He was just trying to get the most coverage for the money. He did qualify for the Aetna. And same thing. We got to talking about the Medicare. He was diabetic, and I was able to get him in that Humana plan that would pay out the monthly allowances. So,
well said.
Yeah, so it worked out pretty well. Like I said, totaled 7 apps this week, counting the Medicare. And I'm going to still try to get a few more. I'm going to be home today. I'm going to go through and see if I can contact some maybe current policyholders, see if I can maybe add a little coverage to some people, and we'll go from there. So
there we go.
That's about it. Yeah, we can switch
on
over.
Free Conference Call HD. Switch on over to StreamYard. Switch on over to socials. We are available on Facebook, not Instagram today, Facebook, YouTube, your face, my face, even MySpace. No, I'm just kidding. But either way you look at it, we're done on the conference call. Enjoy your day out into the field. And remember, you have an opportunity to impact lives, create value, and make some flipping money. So go out there and make that happen as we switch to exclusively our content on social media for the next 30 minutes.
And so we just titled this, selling more than just a price tag. Because like I said, that's just something I feel very strongly about. I think that so many times, as I mentioned earlier, people are just so focused on just the face amounts and the rates. And that's where you're just setting yourself up for replacement. There's so much more to it. So we're just going to kind of break this down a little bit. Why do agents sell based on the lowest price available? Well, yes, it is a competitive market. They have that fear of getting replaced. But I don't know if it's just maybe because of, I know it's because of COVID that telesales has become such a thing. I don't feel like I have nearly as much competition out in the field anymore, Chris. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of agents that are out there where I don't feel like you have to worry so much, unless you're right in business with like those captive carriers that are just so overpriced that anybody could walk in and replace them. Aside of like those 2 or 3 carriers that are just not even competitive, I work for 2 of them. that aren't even competitive anymore. People, one of them isn't even captive, but people just don't do business with them because their prices they don't have enough to justify their rates, I guess I would say. But anyways, I don't feel like my persistency is very good. I rarely get replaced. I don't know if I hardly ever get replaced. And my primary carrier, I write a good portion of my business with American Amicable, and I would say my persistency is over 90%. The business stays on the books, but again, I think it's not just that I'm selling a product that I'm confident in, but I sell the value. I sell the value and what I'm there to do. And as I said on the presentation last week, like half the time, by the time I'm leaving, people are so happy. They're like giving me a big hug that, I was able to help them and they feel good about it. So those are the sort of things I think that are going to protect me too from replacement by selling on that value. So, but so many agents, they fear too much, I think, getting replaced, that they just think that they have to write the absolute cheapest product out there. I've fallen into it too. Last year, I wrote with a carrier that was more
Dirt cheap.
competitive.
Dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap.
Yeah,
They were,
dirt cheap.
they were a price buster.
Mhm.
And nothing really bad to say about them. The product was great. The underwriting was awesome. It wasn't very difficult to get business approved. But when then they changed things around and rates went up a little bit. I think they just kind of freaked out about too much business coming in. Rates go up, and then they put everybody on as earned commission. And I wish I could use a primary carrier and just work on as earned, but unfortunately, I got a mortgage and other stuff, and I really prefer an advanced commission. So
true.
But anyways,
Side
the target,
note.
Chris,
Side note. So there are a lot of agents, and we're going to keep this in 28 minutes or less, I promise. There's a lot of agents that are so lacking of confidence. They think they have to sell the cheapest price all the time. And then when that cheap product comes off the market, their business model collapses. Their emotions go through the roof and they're nowhere to be found. But let's be real. To be replaced, ethically speaking, somebody has to get into the home or on the phone with your client before they have a birthday. One. Second, the client has to have had no changes in their health. Well, that happens all the time. These people are old and sick and they get sicker every day. 3, there have to have been no changes in pricing or underwriting or carrier availability in the market. Now we're 3 things in before someone can beat what you wrote, even if you wrote an average price policy. 4, that person has to be better looking and more confident than you. Get the policy, walk them through a replacement process, and then be a better agent than you. We're 4 things in at that point. And then 5, they have to be able to navigate them through the replacement process of taking your policy off the bank draft, putting their policy through. The odds of that taking place are just so low. And I can tell you with my right hand raised in court, I've sold the cheapest, something in the middle, and some expensive stuff at times, and none of it ethically gets replaced. And I do it in really competitive, oversaturated, big urban markets. Your biggest issue is not someone being smarter and better looking and more competitive than you, replacing your average price policy. It's writing something that issues, pays, and stays on the books. That's a far more pressing issue than someone price busting you a month after you were in the house.
That's true. And I think even just the little things, Chris, like the true Social Security billing. I think that's a big thing. Writing business with the carriers that have the billing set up properly. It makes a difference. There's carriers that'll say, oh yeah, we can draft on the 1st, we can draft on the 3rd, and whoop-de-doo. But when the 1st falls on Saturday, and then they don't draft it until Monday. Well, what happens when our client, unfortunately, took all that money and went out and, spent all their money over the weekend, forgetting that premium payment was supposed to be paid. Yeah. It happens, unfortunately. But with the true Social Security billing, they'll draft that premium the same exact day that that we know that they're receiving their deposits. So if the first is on Saturday and we know that they're going to receive that deposit on Friday, they're going to draft it on the Friday. So and even like even like the Direct Express, Chris. I again, like you've said, Transamerica, they seem to have it down, where other carriers maybe not so much.
Yeah.
I remember, one, Chris, that isn't in business anymore is that Prosperity. I was writing a little bit with them, a year and a half ago, and they accepted the Direct Express, but it seemed like a good portion of them would fall off like after the first month. And I mean, the client didn't like lose their debit card or anything. I don't know. It's something with that equation of like when somehow Transamerica just knows how to draft it right. So for those that need a carrier that does Direct Express, I mean, I think that they're probably the way to go. But just these little things make a difference when it comes to keeping business on the books and value, in my opinion, because you put them with a carrier that's going to make the client's life easier. Unfortunately, we're dealing with people that aren't the best with their money. If they were the best with their money, they wouldn't need this. And that's why when we have a carrier that knows how to bill it correctly, it's going to help the client rather than some that, I mean, I've seen carriers, you could set the draft day for the 3rd and they don't take it out until the 5th. And that could be every single month. And right there, I mean, just those 2 extra days, I mean, that could be the difference in a policy staying on the books and falling off. So, deal with carriers that know what they're doing and know how to draft properly. Makes a big difference. Why sell based on value? I believe that it separates you from the competition. Those that are just talking about face amounts and rates and trying to find people the absolute cheapest thing out there until the next product comes out, like I said, that is cheaper. Makes what you are selling unique and different than anything else out there. I believe that it greatly improves persistency. And, we're going to talk about, one of the products that I write a lot today and the reason I write it, and the rates are higher. It's like their highest priced product and it stays on the books again, because I sell based on the value. So just a few different ways that you can add value. Like I said, let the prospect know you will be involved even after they pass away. Makes things easier on the family. I mean, I use like the memorial guidebooks. I go through a memorial guide in my presentation. And as I've mentioned in the past, for those of you that need these memorial guides, reach out to the different carriers that you write with. Most of them have some sort of like pre-arrangement guide, memorial guide, but those are just little things that add value too. I go through every single presentation. I go through a memorial guide with the person. I'm not sitting there filling it out with them, but I go through it with them and it's adding value. I've had clients tell me, wow, my other insurance doesn't do that. I mean, all it is a piece of paper I'm going through with them. Might not even be from the carrier that we're writing it with.
Shout out to Baltimore Life. They sent me, Adam, a 30-pound box of memorial planning guides. I kid you not. The shipping cost on that was probably $100. It was so heavy. I almost strained my back lifting this thing. It was just stuffed full of memorial or planning guides. Like how does this create value? It's making an intangible product that you're selling that they're going to pay for and never do anything with real. So don't discount the power of what a leave behind does for that tangibility into the value proposition of the sale.
Well, I'm painting the picture, Chris, of all of the things that their family is going to need to know at the time that they pass away. And they're things a lot of times that maybe they haven't even thought about until I sat down with them. So, but in that guidebook, as I went through in the presentation last week, I always tell the client the last part of this guidebook, I'm going to put my name and my phone number. And when you're done filling this out, give this to your loved ones. Let them know that when that time comes, I'm the first person they need to call, even before the funeral home. And I tell them, I just want to make sure we get things done right, that they get the money when they need to, that the funeral home doesn't get a hold of the policy and try to use up as much of the money as they can. Unfortunately, sometimes those sort of things happen. So yeah, I let the prospect know I'm involved all the way through to the end until after they pass. And I want to make sure we get that claim paid quickly. Those are things that, remember, we get paid renewals to service our clients. Well, I want to service that client and their family all the way after the fact. So, those are, again, that's adding value. These are things that other people out there are not talking about. They're talking about face amounts and rates, and they don't even talk about like how the policy pays out. So again, focus on working with carriers that have a good reputation of paying claims quickly. And if you don't know how the carrier that you're writing business with works when it comes to paying claims, call the claims department, ask them. I've done it. I called a carrier once. They were kind of surprised. And I asked to speak to the claims department, and I asked them, what's the average that it usually takes for you guys to pay a non-contestable claim? And they were just like, let me get back to you. And I don't even know if I ever got like a firm answer on it, but that's something that's important to know. You want to know, like, there's carriers out there that might take 24 to 48 hours. There's others that could take longer. I want to make sure that this is serving its purpose, and family needs that money right away because the funeral home is not waiting to get paid. So right there, work with carriers. I work with carriers where they're not afraid to post it in a brochure that quick pay within 48 hours, the family will receive that death benefit. They're confident that they'll pay that claim quickly. And when if they're confident enough that they're willing to put that down on a brochure, to me, that tells me that, very seldom is it going to take longer than that for that claim to pay out, especially on a non-contestable claim. Of course, a contestable claim is going to take a little bit longer. I don't really get into the specifics how all that works with the client when I'm sitting there, writing an application. But unfortunately, yeah, on a contestable claim could take a little bit longer. But I've seen carriers that have only taken maybe 7 to 10 days to pay a contestable claim. But again, it's maybe because I was involved with that process too, and making sure that all the proper paperwork was in, because I knew the family needed that money. So that's definitely another recommendation I would make on a policy that's contestable. If you have a client that passes away, work even a little bit harder for that family, because they're going to need a little bit of extra help to try to get that claim paid as quickly as possible, because there is going to be a little bit more work involved with getting it done in a timely fashion. We already talked about the prearranged funeral guides, riders that can be added into the policies. I don't do enough of that. Like I talk a little bit about like accelerated death benefits, where if they're diagnosed with a terminal illness, they could receive up to 100% of that death benefit while they're still living. Talk about that a little bit. But like even like the nursing home waiver premium, I don't add that on, and I probably should, because I think that's a really good rider where people, if they end up in a nursing home, a lot of times their assets are taken away from them. They might not be able to make their premium payment to keep their life insurance in force. But with a waiver of premium, at least they're protected from that. Yeah, what's up, Chris?
Two ways you can do riders, in my opinion. Little practical tip. Always add them. And if for some reason you meet resistance, you can subtract them. Don't ask permission. It just comes with a policy. Adam, I used to sell glasses at Pearl Vision at around 20 years old. And I was probably the best glasses salesman in all of Eastern Pennsylvania. And I had like the highest per product cost because I just stacked that product with every rider that the glasses could come with, from scratch coating to all the things. They just got stuffed into the thing, and I would subtract them out if I needed to, but it just came with it. The other option you have with riders, practical tip for the day, is at least ask. I mean, for God's sake, it's your responsibility to ask and offer the options available on the product, and it's their choice to not pick it. Adam, oh my God, I almost forgot. Do you want me to add in the double for accidental death so that this policy pays $40,000 when you die of an accident instead of just the $20,000? And they'll typically say, well, how much is it? Well, it's like a couple dollar difference. Yeah, go ahead. It's no big. Absolutely. Very rarely do I meet resistance with that, but I at least ask, because What would happen if I didn't and that person died of an accident and I'm servicing the claim and I'm thinking to myself, now I could have got them double the benefit, but I didn't ask if they wanted accidental death. Happened to
Yeah.
Ricky. I mean, it's just I think we should at least build it in or offer it as often as we can.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think, well, I add the riders in usually after, but I think honestly, if it'd probably be easier to just kind of make it all part of the package. If
Mhm.
but maybe that's something you got to figure out, Chris, with like Toolkit. You got to figure out that would be a nice little add-on.
It's in there.
Is it
It's in the drop-down screen.
okay? Yeah, because that's the one
Accidental
thing
death
I'm not.
benefit rates.
Okay, I guess it's there, and I didn't even realize it.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's something like I'm always like after the fact figuring out the accidental because I'm always just figuring out the regular face amount in Toolkit. So I guess that's good to know. I'll have to go back in there and play around with it. Let's see. I'll try to breeze through here a little bit. Products with the funeral concierge services. I mean, that's something that I'd say 2/3 of my career. That's kind of something I've been focused on. I mean, I worked with a carrier for 11 and a half years that was their big thing, was focusing on, the value and the funeral concierge service. And it's something that they had some of the highest rates out there, this carrier. But those that sold the value, which I did, I sold the funeral concierge service that they offered. It was included with the policy, but I mean, my persistency hung around 90%. People always talk about this carrier and how they're so easy to replace. They're easy to replace for the agents that weren't taking that extra step and going through the whole funeral concierge service that can be involved, that's going to save that family money and make things a lot easier on the family when the time comes. So, like I said, highest priced product, and even the one I replaced the other day, Chris. The senior life, they have a concierge service sort of thing as well. Maybe the agent that wrote it didn't explain that well enough. Because it was not an issue when it came to replace, and I was able to add an extra $4,000 in coverage to her. So I just think when there's these sort of tools available, take advantage of them because it makes a difference and it makes it real to the client, where it makes the whole funeral concierge service gives the client the mindset that this isn't just another life insurance policy. This is like my funeral plan. And I even say things when I'm going through the funeral concierge service, like my clients don't cancel these policies because there's nothing else like this out there. This is like their funeral plan. They can get life insurance anywhere, but this is unique. This is different. And they keep it. Well, maybe that's why my persistency is pretty good.
Can I show real quick on Toolkit where the thing is that you're looking for without busting up the show real quick?
Sure. Go for it, Chris.
Here we go. I think I can do this right. If you look on Toolkit right now, you'll see this drop down right on the corner, and you hit the drop down button and it opens up the menu and it shows you the accidental death benefit rates. If there's limited pay rates available, it'll show you limited pay rates. Let me scroll down and show you one more. There's no accidental shown there, but there is over here. So in the drop-down screen, Adam, you'll often find, for those that are watching that use the Toolkit as well, little Toolkit commercial, the accidental or limited pay rates are in the drop-down screens on the full quoter.
Okay. Is it in the like on the phone app or just in the full quoter?
Yeah, I think I'll do it on the phone app while you keep going on the presentation, but that was right off
Okay.
of my laptop, just so the folks can see where it is.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to skip a few of these slides here. American Amicable, that's the one that I write a lot with, this Platinum product, the Platinum Legacy product that offers the funeral concierge service. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm just going to kind of skip through some of this and we'll get to. So for those of you that are not familiar with it, and if you're not with us, and I mean, I had an agent that she just moved her contract over to us, Chris, and I told her, I said, if you ever talk to a client and they're going to be modified, like a 2-year waiting period, I told her, write the platinum solution or the platinum legacy with American Amicable because they're not going to cut your commission. And she's like, wow, that's really cool. But she's like, this was before her transfer went through. She's like, that's not even a product that it looks like I'm able to offer. But now she should be able to, because our agency, we have it, of course. But like I said, it's just something that adds a lot of value, is this platinum product. And the one big advantage for the agent, like I just mentioned, most carriers on a modified policy, you're going to take a haircut of at least 20% on your comp. You don't run into that on the platinum solution. You can write the modified, they call it return of premium. They're not cutting your commission. You're getting the same full commission that you would have got on first day coverage. To me, that tells me they really see the value in this product. They really see the value in this funeral concierge. Like I said, it's going to keep that business on the books. And that's why they're willing to pay an agent a full commission. They're not going to dock you because the person is modified hyphen, quote, return of premium. And same thing, it's got the immediate graded and the return of premium benefits. As I mentioned, the premiums are higher than the senior choice or the family choice. The family choice is for the people that are ages 49 and under, I believe. And then the senior choice, of course, is 50 and above. So the same thing with the platinum. They have the platinum solution, which is the younger age, and the platinum legacy for the older ages. But yeah, same underwriting, just the premium's a little bit higher. Not a whole lot, maybe 5 to 10%. But like I said, it's adding that additional value with this funeral concierge service. And of course, when I go through this, I mean, I don't even go over the whole concierge service until I know for sure that they're going to qualify. Like, I'm going through my presentation, I'm going through and asking the person about their age and their health and their medications and all that stuff. I don't want to go through that whole part of it and then not be able to offer it to the client. So first I got to make sure they qualify. Once I know they qualify, then I go back and I talk about this platinum product and how I just, and I'll kind of get into how I present it to them in a minute, but no cost benefits on the platinum solution. There is that accelerated death benefit, which is nice. If the person were diagnosed with a terminal illness, they can receive 100% of that death benefit while they're still living. They could run down to the funeral home and just pay off their funeral themselves. Is kind of how I explain it to the client. Whatever's left over, you go take a trip with your family or something. Accelerated death benefit for confined care. If you end up in a nursing home, they'll actually pay you a monthly allowance of 5% of the death benefit. So that's just a little something to kind of get some cash flow going. If all their money's taken away, they can still get a little bit of cash flow coming in from their life insurance policy. So, and those are no cost benefits. Those are just included with that product. Some optional benefits is that nursing home waiver premium, which is also available on the regular senior choice product. Accidental death benefits. And like I said, the big thing is that membership to the Everest, the funeral concierge service. We already kind of talked about this stuff here, Chris. So I'm just going to skip over to the Everest. So the Everest, when I'm bringing up this Everest, the first thing I ask my client is, at the time that you pass away, who will be the one planning your funeral? And I like to kind of see what they say. A lot of times it's usually one of their kids. Oh, it's going to be my daughter. She'll be the one handling it. The next thing I ask, has your daughter ever had to plan somebody's funeral? And see what they say, yes or no. Especially if they say no. I always come back and say, wow, I could only imagine, that's going to be very difficult on her when that time comes. Having to walk into the funeral home and pick out a casket for you and all of the other steps necessary to get it done. Just kind of paint that picture right away. And then I talk about this Everest and just how these guys go to bat for the family, and they're there to just kind of make things a lot easier on everybody. I talk about how the Everest, they're a advocate group. They're made up of like people who've been in the funeral business for years. They know how the funeral homes operate. They're real good about stepping in and negotiating those prices with the funeral home. And the reason it makes it easier on your family, Mrs. Jones, is that you've already put everything together. This isn't, like I said, this isn't just another life insurance. This is a plan where you're going to pretty much put your whole funeral plan together ahead of time. And then I'll tell the client, I've seen situations where when my client put it all together ahead of time, the family could be as involved as little or as much as they desired. Like I've seen situations where the family's like, okay, mom, you've already handled all this. So that means all we got to do is make a phone call. And the next thing we have to do is show up at the funeral. And that's basically how it works. If they put it all together ahead of time, that Everest can pretty much handle everything. The next thing they have to do is show up at the funeral. So it just takes a lot off the family. And I'm telling you, the clients, they eat this stuff up. They love it. And like I said, it's just adding that value, and it's separating what I'm doing from what everybody else is doing, where they're just talking about the cheapest thing out there. People are willing to pay a little bit more for something that has that value. That when I talk about, how this is going to make your daughter's life a heck of a lot easier, that's who this is for. They want that time to go as easily as possible. They know that they need the money, but there's so much more to it than just the money. So by having this Everest, it's just, makes things a heck of a lot easier on those that are left behind. And I get into like the benefits of the Everest and how it works, what they do is, they're not only going to call the funeral home that you choose to use, Mrs. Jones, but they're going to reach out to other funeral homes in the area too, just to get comparable pricing. They're going to use that as leverage to negotiate with your funeral home. And, I always just kind of throw numbers out there. They've been saving families on average between $2,000 and $4,000 off the cost of the funeral. So that adds value to Mrs. Jones. You're 83 years old. Insurance isn't cheap, but you won't need to take out as much coverage with this program because these guys are going to step in and save your family that extra money. So just so many different ways that you can incorporate this in with what you're doing that will make sense to the client. Like I said, heck, someone who's 80 years old, a $5,000 policy, a lot of these carriers, they're paying close to $100 a month. Maybe that's all they can afford. And maybe 5,000 isn't going to be enough to do much anything. But with this assistance, that $5,000 is going to go a heck of a lot further. So yeah. What's up, Chris? You look like you were going to say something.
No, just make it make sense to them. Don't confuse the client. Confuse people. Don't buy insurance.
Yeah, no, you're right. Talk about, like I mentioned, right here on a brochure, talks about the quick pay. We in as little as 48 hours, they say. Usually it's going to be right around 48 hours. So I show them that. And then I ask them if they have a will. Well, why would you want to go to an attorney and pay ridiculous retainer fees and hourly fees when the Everest can just kind of help you put it all together for free? So all you got to do is reach out to them. They'll help you put your will together. If anything, you could run down to the bank and get it notarized when you're done with it, and you're good to go. And that's pretty much it. Just kind of go through the benefits of how it works. And, when you get your policy, you reach out to them, you put it all together, you finalize everything when the time comes. And it actually, I've seen my clients' policies, Chris, where it actually comes with like the membership cards where they can rip them off and give like 2 or 3 of them to their loved ones. So that they can let their family members know, be sure to call this number when the time comes. These guys are going to help you with putting my whole funeral together.
Well said.
So yeah, like I said, many different ways of adding value. Oh, and then you can go to adambersan.com if you want to sign up for future training. You can receive an email so you know what the week's topic is going to be. Check it out. And but like I said, bottom line, adding value is going to help with persistency. Really, you're not only are you doing a good thing for your clients by adding that value with these different tools and things that are going to help their family when the time comes and help save them money and all these other things, but it's going to help you because your renewals are going to be a heck of a lot better because you're not going to lose as much business because you're selling that value. And I'm telling you, boy, you'll be getting a lot of hugs too when you're leaving the house.
Well said. Value sells, value pays, value stays, value increases your revenue and your residuals and does right by the client. What we need you to do right by us is to drop a comment if you've watched live or later on whatever medium you're watching us on, and catch us next week. Make sure you enter your information on Adam's page so you can be notified on whatever topic he has to discuss. And close the week strong. If you have a carrier, a bill to pay, and people to see, you have all it takes. Go out there and write some business.
Oh, and one other thing, Chris, I wanted to mention too, American Amicable, the platinum product with the Everest, they offer it. And then I also use the Transamerica Express because they also offer the Everest. So, and if for some reason they won't qualify with American Amicable, well, then there's a good possibility that depending on what the health issue is, they still could qualify on the Transamerica Express. Yeah. So right there, I have two options that I can present that and, do what I can to help the person with the added value there. So just wanted to mention that too.
Yep. GTL also has Sequoia built in. So if they don't qualify for those, you got a modified plan, graded plan, with it built in as well.
Sounds good. Yeah. Sequoia, very similar sort of service. So as you mentioned, GTL offers that too. So with that, heck, you could offer this to pretty much anybody because heck, GTL is going to take pretty much everybody.
You got it. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
All right. Take care, guys. Have a nice weekend.